back?
Yeah, we're back.
All right. Joaquani coming in as a negative 155 favorite. Durave coming in as a plus 130 underdog. And first thing I think to mention right off the bat is there's a fairly significant difference in height between these two. Joaquani's coming in at 6'3 and Durave 5'11. So I imagine, and also about a 5-inch reach advantage. Uh, Joaquani is coming off of a loss where he lost by knockout in the second round. Before that, had a 4-fight winning streak. This is going to be his fourth fight in the UFC. He got his start with Dana White's Contender Series, where he ended up getting a win. So he was off to a pretty good start. Ran into a bit of trouble in his last fight against Rodriguez. Whereas Brave is also coming off a loss, also fairly new to the UFC. This is going to be his third fight in the UFC. He also had a good fight. So both of these guys at a similar point in terms of their UFC careers. Brave is 34, Joaquani's 34, so very similar in terms of a lot of things uh, about their careers. In terms of Joaquani seems to be more busy based on the striking stats. He has a more strikes landed per minute, a better accuracy. He also has, or both of these guys have a fairly decent striking defense. And in terms of grappling, there's not much there for Giovanni, other than to mention that he does have pretty good takedown defense. And in terms of picks, I'll wait to make my pick until you go ahead and give me your breakdown.
Chitty's last fight against RoboCop was solid. Like, I think it was a great back and forth. I think he just, I don't know if he didn't have like the body mass to withstand some of the punches or whatever, but RoboCop is always a tough fight. He is almost, to me, reminds me of like Glover Teixeira, like can just take punishment over and over and come back. So with Durev, with his record, I expect him to come out, grappling heavy, wrestling heavy. I definitely am going to be picking Chitty, hoping that he is able to finish. I see him hopefully like with a style like a Israel Adesanya, just very dynamic striker, very entertaining, exciting every time. Duruev, I expect him if he does come out and win, will be grappling control, neutralize the striking because Chitty's solid on the feet, 100%.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with that analysis. They're both they both seem to be strikers, and with that reach advantage and that height advantage, I think what you mentioned, which is the movement, I think we're also going to see from him. It's probably going to be a pretty big advantage. So yeah, I agree with the odds makers on this one, picking Dokwani. And next up, we have Alex Perez against Manel Cape. And Perez is coming in as a plus 160 underdog. Cape, negative 190 favorite. And go ahead and tell us what your breakdown on this one is, Fern.
Perez is fighting out of Team Oyama. They're largely striking based. Back in the day, they used to like be Quentin Jackson, Huntington Beach based team. So they're definitely a well-rounded camp. With his losses to Davis and Figueiredo and Alex Pantoja, I see that he's probably been working on his grappling because he's lost by submissions the last 2 times. But other than that, like he's got solid striking. With Manel Cape, he's just another one of those guys who is just so exciting. Like you blink and he just swings with everything in him. It's just crazy. Seeing him just punch through guys. I predict this will be a stand up war with Manel Cape coming out on top. Like he just throws harder punches. I think, and I think Perez will be probably won't be worried about the takedown at all in this fight, so that'll be good. And we'll get to hopefully see two guys show off their striking. But I'm picking Manel Cape for mine.
All right, yeah, and it is interesting. Perez, his last two fights, losing by submission. The last one against Pantoja, before that against Figueiredo for the title fight. He actually has a lot of submissions on his fight record. And when you look at his grappling stats, he's got pretty good takedowns, pretty good takedown accuracy, and pretty good takedown defense. So, yeah, it is interesting that his last two losses were by submission. And as you mentioned, Perez has pretty good striking. So does Cape. And Cape seems like he throws with more bad intentions for sure when he's striking. and he's coming in as the negative 190 favorite. And Cape is coming off of a 3-fight win streak. So as far as the mental game goes, the momentum is definitely in his corner. And yeah, nothing too exciting for the picks on this one. I think if you're going to pick someone, it's got to be Cape on this one. I don't see the reason for picking Perez other than that he's got that experience. Maybe he's fought some higher level guys than Cape in the UFC. He's got that going for him, but it seems like momentum is. And next up, Andrea Lee versus your favorite, Macy Barber. Macy Barber coming in as the big favorite in this one, negative 280. Andrea Lee plus 230, the underdog. And let's see, in Macy Barber's last fight was against Jessica Ai, which she won. She had a fight before that against De La Rosa, she won, and a fight against Maverick, which she won. So some pretty good wins in her last 3 fights. Andrea Lee is coming off a loss against Arahu, where she lost by decision. Before that, had two wins, one against Calvillo, one against Shevchenko, not Valentina, but her sister. So yeah, in terms of momentum, seems like it's favoring Macy Barber. I think Macy probably best known for being like that brawler style. You expect her to probably bring that. I'm more curious, I guess, how Andrea Lee is going to be approaching this. What are your thoughts on how Andrea Lee is going to?
I think just her keeping her fighting style the same. Her win against Antonina Shevchenko, I could see her, definitely being confident on the ground. Macy Barber, I want to say last fight, she was throwing a lot of elbows, and that really kind of helped her pull ahead in the scorecards. I remember that being like their game plan, just like elbows, 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 and she would land one or two. I definitely would like to see Macy Barber actually live up to the hype that she's given herself. She's like a meatball, a Molly meatball, but meatball like the last 2-3 fights like has backed it up, and I did not care for her at all. So Barber, I'd love to see her step it up. It looked like her last fight she was throwing in more striking variations. With that being said, I'm going to be rooting for Lee. Lee's going to be my pick. I think she'll be able to do well on the ground. Just keep an eye out for that elbow. It seems like Macy's striking isn't very solid, but those elbows we've seen a lot of. Just the momentum, the power behind it is just able to put anyone to sleep. So Andrea Lee, I would say by ground, by a ground submission for sure.
Getting again.
Yeah, what's your pick, man?
So I was saying that one thing that's interesting in this one, I think, is that both of these fighters started the UFC in 2018. Andrea Lee, though, she's 34. Macy Barber's 24. So I think that's one of the big reasons for giving Macy the edge, because both these fighters have wins and losses on the record. They both have fought the top levels of the division at this point. Lee's coming off of a loss, whereas Barber's coming off of some wins. But before that, Lee had a couple of wins that she had racked up against some good opponents. So I also agree. I feel like there's value in betting on Lee on this one. I don't feel like she's taken so much punishment at this point in her career that the age is going to be a huge factor. Maybe with conditioning, at 34, it is a little bit older for in the men's divisions, at least for the lighter weight classes, they tend to not go late into their careers. But in terms of how many fights they both had, Andrea Lee only has a few more than Macy Barber on her record. So I agree. I'll also pick Andrea Lee on this one over Macy Barber. Next up, we've got Nate Landwehr versus Austin Lingo. And let's see. Lingo's coming in as the negative 170 favorite in this one.
Hey, you want to call me back real quick? Because your video didn't come through. It's just audio.
Okay. Any luck now?
No video coming through on your end.
Okay, let's just finish.
I'll take
Everything's
myself off.
going to shit here. Oh man.
Something's going
Okay.
on.
Yeah, go and give the breakdown on this one.
This fight, I think, is an interesting choice that they have for the essentially the, you know, right before the co-main event. I think, you know, both guys have an opportunity to make a name for themselves. I'm not really, I don't know. I think honestly, I would have been more excited for a Macy Barber fight or Chitty fight closer to the main card than this. Both these guys, with Nate Landwehr, he's got 2 wins recently, Anaconda choke and decision. And with Austin Lingo, same thing, coming off of 2 wins. So I don't know. This is an interesting fight for them to have picked, you know, to put before Holly Holm and Marlon Vera. Definitely not excited about it. This is going to be one of those fights where I'm just like 50-50 toss up. Lingo's 9-1. I'm gonna pick Lingo.
Okay, and yeah, both these fighters are both coming off of 2 wins. They had a loss before that. In terms of activity, you know, Nate's had, let's see, since 2020, 5 fights. Lingo has had 3 fights since 2020. It's been a little bit longer since Lingo has fought, so might have a little bit of ring rust. I liked Nate in his last fight. I thought he seems like a pretty strong wrestler as well as a pretty decent striker, and he has that higher output. So I think the conditioning is probably favoring Nate, which is possibly why we're seeing the negative 200, even though he's the favorite for him, even though he's 6 years older than Lingo. So there's that as well. But yeah, I'm going to pick Nate on this one. My guess is that Nate's going to use his conditioning to tire out Lingo, and then be mixing it up in terms of the striking game. But I'm not sure if Lingo's going to be able to hang with Nate. So wait, you said you're picking Lingo on this one?
Yeah, just based off the record.
Okay.
I'm looking at the stats now. They both have solid takedown defense. I think it's going to be a great fight to watch now that I'm looking at the stats, because I'm like, I hope they just, you know, get their underhooks in, throw each other back up, and just keep it striking. But with that being said, go ahead.
That's why I think Nate is going to use the wrestling. I agree that the takedown defense on both of these is great. So I don't think Nate's necessarily going to take Lingo down to the ground and beat him up. But I think because the conditioning's better and he's going to be putting him into those, you know, applying that grappling pressure, I think that's what's going to potentially cause Lingo to tire out, which will then open up the striking game for Nate.
Yeah, and Nate throws quite a bit of strikes per minute. Like, he's landing 6 strikes per minute. I feel like that's one of the higher ones. Usually it's like 2 or 3 strikes landed per minute that I see. So
yeah,
I definitely expect him to, you know, mix that up. I'll still go with Lingo because I said him first, but I'm not gonna lose on this.
All right. Next up, okay, Holly Holm against Yana Santos. And I think it's been a while since we've seen Holly. Her last fight was in May of 2022, where she had lost against Vera. Before that, she racked up 2 good wins, one against Aldana, one against Raquel Pennington. That was in 2020. So she hasn't been super active. Santos, on the other hand, had 2 fights in 2021, nothing in 2022. So Holly Holm has fought more recently. Santos, 33 years of age. Holly Holm is 41, which is, she's got to be the oldest female in the UFC, I think, competing at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, still looking competitive, at least in her last fight. Even though she lost her last fight, if I recall correctly, it seemed like she was, you know, hanging in there. It was a split decision, so, you know, it was a close fight. But both of these ladies coming off of a loss, so neither one really having the, you know, mental edge in terms of momentum in their favor. And in terms of stats, well, we all know Holly Holm, great striker, has that background. So I think Santos will have a little bit of an edge on the grappling, and it looks like that is probably the case based on the grappling stats, where she has a few more takedowns, a little bit more accurate with the takedowns. But Holly Holmes, you know, she's got really good takedown defense. You know, if you're a striker, you've got to practice that takedown defense, and so her takedown defense is pretty good on this one. Negative 230 favorite Holly Holmes. Do you agree with that, Fern?
Yeah, I think Holly has all the tools to just be champion again. Like, absolutely. She's got, she's a former boxing champion, training with Greg Jackson's camp. Um, I think with everyone they have in their camp now, she should be able to like easily come out here and finish people. I think she's just been really tentative lately, just kind of on the defensive side, because she's actually has less significant strikes per minute than Yana does. And Yana is not known for her, striking and boxing. They do have a common opponent in Irene Aldana. Yana was knocked out by her, whereas Holly beat her by decision back in 2020. So I think this is actually a very balanced match. I think honestly, Holly is like in do or die mode. I don't know what's gonna happen if she loses or like barely sneaks out a decision win. Like, you have the people at the top just taking each other out right and left, and I don't know. I feel like she's got to do something today to show that she belongs and can still hang, because otherwise, these young fighters are taking over.
Yeah. Oh, one one interesting thing you mentioned, Aldana. The inverse is true with Vieira though. So Santos has a win over Vieira, and Holly Holm, that's who she lost to in her last fight. So their last two, MMA math does not quite work always, as we see there. But yeah, I think this will be an interesting fight. And yeah, I mean, at age 41, man, at some point she's going to hang up the gloves. Do you think this could possibly be Holly Holmes' last fight, or do you think she's going to try to make another run at the title?
I think it really depends. If she gets, nullified and just everything she does gets negated, I could see it being her last one, because, Yana has some good wins, but not like notable victories over anyone at the top. Like, if this is a close fight, I think she needs to look at her career and be like, what do I do now? There's up and coming fighters that are training out of Greg Jackson's gym. Clarissa Shields, a pro boxer that's fighting for PFL, is training there. Has some decent wins in MMA now, and she's been being mentored by Holly Holm. And same thing with what's her name, Karate Hottie. I think they're both in that same situation. Like, I hope they're encouraging each other and training hard, and then having a former training partner in John Jones coming back and still hanging. I hope they're all just, it lights the fire under all of them, because I just don't want to see another boring performance from her when she, I think everyone's highlight KO of all time might be like her knocking out Ronda Rousey. Like, I want to see that
Yeah.
Holly Holm again, and I don't think we've seen her since then. But
Yeah. So wait, your pick is
Holly Holm.
Holly Holm. All right, I'm gonna pick Santos on this one, just because of what you mentioned. I did see in her last fight, even though last fight was competitive, just very cautious. I feel like Santos has a little bit more to prove, whereas Holly Holm, if she hung up her, was done, and this ends up being her last fight, she doesn't have anything to prove at this point. She's had that incredible career before the UFC. She's had a great career in the UFC. So I feel like Santos has more to prove. She's younger, even though she's the underdog. I'm going to pick her on this one. And last up for the main event, Marlon Vera against Corey Sandhagen. Sandhagen coming in as the negative 155 favorite. Vera, the plus 130 dog. Let's see. So Sandhagen, both these guys coming off a win, but just real quick, the last few fights, Sandhagen, his last win was over Song Yudong. He had a loss to Peter Yan for the title. He had a loss to TJ Dillashaw before that. And Vera, on the other hand, is on a 4-fight win streak. His last win was over Dominic Cruz. The win before that, over Rob Font, win over Frankie Edgar and Davey Grant. Both of these guys, right at the top, definitely both of them are top 5 guys in the division. Corey Sandhagen, that loss to Peter Yan, it was a super close fight. I thought, even though it was unanimous decision, it's not like he just got steamrolled. It was really competitive. What are your thoughts on how this fight's going to go down?
I am surprised this isn't on a pay-per-view card. This could easily be an interim title bout for me. Marlon Vera and Corey have done an amazing job. You look at their last opponents for Corey, Peter Yan 2 fights ago, TJ Dillashaw, Frankie Edward, Marlon Moraes, Aljamain, Rafael Sunside, John Lineker. Like, that's just crazy to me. And then, Marlon Vera's win over Dominic Cruz, who just has such crazy movement back and forth, left and right. Um, I'm just so like, man, this is for anyone who gets a chance, like, tune in, like a free fight. That, like, this kind of level fight is, I don't know who to pick. I'd like to go with Marlon Vera because I want to say, like, just he's a finisher. He definitely is out there to just knock people out and put them to sleep and hang with them. With Corey, he's just got such amazing grappling and just well balanced. Like, I think he's a complete mixed martial artist. With Marlon Vera obviously having the better striking, in my opinion. But this is a toss-up fight for me that I think is just going to end up being fight of the night, possibly fight of the year. Like, there's no way it can't be. Like, I'm super excited about this, but I'm picking Marlon.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I like Marlon. I feel like Marlon actually is better. I feel like on the ground than Sandhagen. I don't know if that's just because we don't get to see. Sandhagen seems to always want to keep things in the stand up, where he probably perceives he has an advantage in a lot of the fights. But in terms of striking, I'm surprised you think Vera has the better striking than Sandhagen, because I feel like Sandhagen is just a little bit more explosive, whereas Vera he's more consistent. Like, I feel like he maybe when we've never seen Sandhagen, I don't think get super tired or exhausted, so I don't know that we can say either guy's going to have an advantage in terms of conditioning. But Corey, he does that movement where he'll throw a flying knee in and do some dynamic, powerful strikes. So I feel like Sandhagen has a slight edge on the striking, and maybe Vera a little bit more of an edge on the grappling if it goes to the ground. Even though I think the stats show Sandhagen does shoot more takedowns. The accuracy for Vera is a little bit better, but Vera has more submissions. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Is once it does go to the ground, I feel like Vera has a better chance of getting that submission, from his back or in a scramble to get back up. Both these guys have pretty good takedown defense. Yeah, it's gonna be tough. I feel like it's gonna take place on the feet, and that Sandhagen will have a slight advantage. Maybe catch Vera with a knee, or he'll just end up winning on points by decision. So, I'm going with Sandhagen on this one.
Yeah, if it's a finish, I honestly think it'll be a kick finish. like just looking at their records, you're just like, kicks are their favorite finishes, like way to finish a fight. And it wouldn't surprise me if either one of them landed a solid kick. But yeah, I don't think they faced opponents like one another, and I think they're like two of the best in the division. I'd love to see either one of them get a title shot right after this. Because this is going to be an amazing fight.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any other words before we depart?
No, just keep following us, keep liking us, and thanks for the support.
All right. Catch you later.
See ya.